Welcome to Garden Valley Church Podcasts. We are so looking forward to having you join us today.
Welcome to Wow, Look at Us Now podcast. I'm your host, Rochelle Oneslager.
And I'm Michael Oneslager. What's up, guys? I figured pause for
What's
effect
up, guys?
For what do they call it?
Friends,
Yeah,
y'all.
pausing for effect.
Oh, okay.
Can we restart that one, Sean? I didn't feel good about that one. I panicked. What's up, guys? It's Mike and Rochelle with the Wow Look at Us Now podcast.
Oh, man.
This is technically take 2 because I didn't like the first take.
I was just trying not to laugh the whole time. I'm like, wow, it sounds the exact same as the first time. You're like, I didn't like it. I'm like, okay, let's go. So, what are we talking about today, big dog?
And vulnerability and being authentic.
Being vulnerable is a state of emotional exposure that comes with a certain degree of uncertainty. It involves a person's willingness to accept emotional risks that come from being open and willing to love and to be loved. And being authentic is being genuine, that you're true to your own personality, values, spirit, regardless of the pressure that you're under to act otherwise. You're honest with yourself and with others and take responsibility for your mistakes. Your values, ideals, and actions align. Being vulnerable and being authentic. Okay. What is that off of?
I don't know.
It's off a song, I think. No, yeah, it's like that. What's that guy that starts with the songs and he says something like his name? It's not DJ Khaled or something.
No,
it's
you're
like,
talking about Lil Jon.
Oh, maybe it's Little John. Okay. Lil Jon. Okay, we're done.
Yeah.
So, what do you feel like you can?
When do you feel like
you can be vulnerable? Vulnerable. I don't like saying that. I'm gonna mess that up. Vulnerable. When do you feel like you can be vulnerable? And do you have to trust that person to open up?
Yes and yes.
You have to trust that person and be vulnerable with people that you open up to?
So in answer to the first question is when do you feel like you can be vulnerable? I feel like I can be vulnerable about almost everything.
With random people.
With random people. Even like there's a big circle and it has everybody in the world in it, and I can be very vulnerable up to a certain degree with almost every single person. Then there's
you're a little bit more closed off and private in some areas.
Yeah, and then there's like a smaller circle where it's like, okay, now
all
everything
nothing.
It's then this small group gets literally everything. Like I have to be able to share everything, but it's with that small group. So I would say about 80% of everything can be just shared to everybody, because I've tried the whole closed off to everybody and everything, like not share anything, and I found out that it was more negative for me instead of just being out there and open, being more vulnerable and sharing, more about me. And being real with people and being authentic with people has actually helped me in the long run, and it's kept me accountable. Because there was times where it was like, I'm so frustrated because this is the person I want to be, with this moral and this value and this moral and this value, and this is the person I want to be, but I wouldn't be open with people about it. So I just kept messing up, like whether it be my mouth or what I do, behind closed doors or what. But when I brought that out to the light, it helped me so much more on a different level, because it was like, okay, I just told this person this is what I want to be. It doesn't mean that you're going to hit that mark every single day. Like, I think that's what some people struggle with when it comes to being vulnerable and being authentic. It's like, you think that if you don't hit that mark every single day, you're never that person.
Yeah.
And that's so not true. It's like, this is who I want to be. This is who I'm trying to be. And I am going to consistently work at making sure I strive for that.
Yeah.
So I would say for the win, it's almost all the time. to a certain degree. And then do you have to trust? And so, yeah, I do have to, for that last 20% of certain subjects, like, yeah, I'm not going to say every single detail because it's not for everybody. There's some things that it's just meant for your wife and close friends.
Yeah, I was gonna
like,
say there is some stuff that like you don't have to say there. So like being vulnerable doesn't and like authentic doesn't mean you have to share every single thing.
Yeah.
But there's also a part that like when you know that you open up to, and I actually think that being vulnerable is being authentic.
Mm-hmm.
Like that goes together. I never put it together. It's two subjects that we wanted to talk about, and I'm thinking about it like as right before this, and I was being like, actually, you know what? Those go together. Like you can't really be authentic unless you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
Because that's showing your true self. You have to be vulnerable. What changed to make you realize that you were putting on an image and not being your real self? Like, was there a specific time?
Well, I would say I was stretching, you gotta stretch sometimes in these things.
Literally, or just having your arms up.
Yeah, I know. Praising the Lord. Anyways, I would say like in my teenage years to my adult years, I definitely changed the whole image thing because like as a teenager and with social media in high school, like you put on an image all the time, like naturally, like you are naturally taught to put on an image with how society is.
Well, it's even worse now because of social media.
Yeah, but so it's not even. I think
like
everybody's done it at some point in time. So you are naturally taught to do that. And then...
Well, what changed, though? Like, to make you realize...
As I got older, I realized, like, that's not what I want to do or who I want to be. Like, I wanted to be someone who's, like, just, like, that guy, he's a good guy. He's real. He's, like just being known around town as, like, oh, I could trust that. Like, I don't feel like he's one way or the other. And then I would say the biggest thing is, like, when we got married, because there were certain things where it's, like, I didn't feel like I wasn't like, I didn't feel like I was hiding tons of stuff or anything. But when you get married, like, everything comes to light, even the little things.
Yeah.
So it's, like, even if you don't...
expose everything.
Even if you don't feel like, or even if you don't realize there's something in you that's, like, there... it gets brought to the light and it becomes vulnerable and I was like, and we've had talks about this of like, you don't want to seem like you're leading a double life, And so I would say that was like one of the changes for me. Like, I want to make sure that it doesn't look that way, you know, even if it's not, or even if there's some things that's like, cause we're all going to struggle at some point in life with something. And it's going to make people question things or whatever. But for the most part, like, you want to be, like, I want to be that person that's, like, consistent. And it's like, no, like, I struggle with this. Or, like, I'll say something like, hey, can you pray with me? Or pray for me because this is something I'm going through or I'm trying to figure out or whatever the case may be. But all that stuff gets brought to light when you get married. So in the same case, like, even the closest people around you, like friends, family, like, all that stuff, you want to be able to show who you really are. Because if you're not, then like you can't rely on those people or you can't trust those people to be there to get your back because they don't know all the things about you.
Yeah, I just think that I think social media definitely topped it off, but I think like so when I like grew up in the church and like when you get older and you realize things because you're older now, like you understand things more, there's a lot of fake people and things going on that it just like blew my mind. I honestly was like, I wasn't even necessarily like it's not like my family sheltered me.
Yeah.
But I had no idea about the things that went on as much, or like people existed that like felt like they had to be a certain way. And that's like when it came to like religion, like you're trying too hard and you have this image and people get in positions and all this stuff to say, look at me for all this, like, and so, well, I'm talking about like being authentic and stuff, but they're not like, they just keep it to themselves and hide it in like the dark and stuff. And it's like so irritating to me that I like literally when I see that, I want to be the exact opposite. So that's why I'm such like an open book. I want to make sure that also things that people didn't tell me when I was growing up and like no one ever like said things and talked about the hard subjects. They never said, like obviously later on we're talking about like advice you wish you heard when you were younger.
Yeah.
But there's things that I wish I would have known or talked about at least, because then I had to find out things the hard way. And that's some of it was definitely my choice, finding out the hard way, because I didn't always have to go that way. And I think it made me who I am today. But that's why me going through the vulnerable times, it made me authentic. It made me like open up and not be ashamed. It's like once you start being vulnerable and letting people in, it gives more room for other people's opinions to come.
Yeah.
But then like knowing who I am, I'm just like, I literally don't care. This is my experience. This is how I did it. Like, how else are you gonna, if you don't open up and share and be vulnerable with people on how you are on the real subjects and be real and raw, then how is anyone else gonna get help? Like, how are you it's not gonna get anywhere. Someone else you might be able to help someone by talking about your experience. And that's fine that not everyone's like that.
Yeah.
That's
what this whole podcast is about.
Yeah, that's completely fine, because not everyone wants to do that and people are more private, and that's fine. But I truly feel like that God has me here, and like some of my calling is being vulnerable and being authentic, like truly not caring what other people say to like an extent, and literally just doing me and saying I'm not here for anyone else. I'm not, like, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. Like, the older I get, the more confident I am with myself too. The more I learn more about myself, I'm accepting it instead of hating something about myself. I'm just kind of like, well, other than body issues, that's a hard one to accept, but definitely like stuff that has to do with like my personality and like my quirks and stuff, all that stuff. It's like I'm more fine being authentic and who I am with my values, my morals and stuff, like how we wanted to wait till marriage to have sex, even though we both weren't virgins and had sex before.
Yeah.
And we're doing a backtrack, and everyone, when you tell people that
everybody laughs
you're
at
going
you.
back, well, not even that,
not everybody laughs at you, like, but there's been situations that are like, Mike, your virginity's already gone, like, are you trying to re-virginize yourself? I'm like, no, it's I'm like, it has nothing to do with that. I'm like, it just has everything to do with the principle of my relationship with God and her relationship with God and coming together.
Yeah, like, and each other, like putting boundaries and respect and trust, actually. It's a whole nother thing, but I'm like, no, I never did that before, so I wanted to. And so it was like people, I wouldn't say backlash. Honestly, I thought I was going to get a lot more like negative things. Like people are just like, oh, I never can do that. And I said, well, no, you can. And they're like looking at me like, no, you can't. I'm like, no, you can, because I didn't do it those other times. So if I can do it, that means you can do it. You instantly saying that to yourself and saying, no, I can't do it. Well, then yeah, you're maybe not going to do it. But if you tell yourself you can and you will do it, you can. Like, if other people around the world can do it, then you can do it too. So just stuff like that. Like, I thought that people were gonna backlash, and when I ended up telling them that, a lot of people were like, wow, that's actually kind of cool. Like, that's actually really hard and something to do. And I'm like, no, we want to create trust with each other. We need to have boundaries. I really want to see what it's like to honor God in this subject, because I've been obviously pretty filthy in my life in this subject. So I wanted to know what the hype was, like, even in the Bible. Like, I want to know, like, obviously God intends this as a good thing. And obviously I knew on the other side of it, like, it was, I knew, I experienced it, but I didn't know about, like, when you put God in it with you, like honoring him in that. I didn't know what that actually meant. I was like, no, I'm going to do this. Like, obviously he wants it to be done like this, and there's got to be a reason. So I'm going to find out myself. And obviously I think it worked out pretty well.
Yeah. So I have a question for you that's on the fly. Would you say it's easier to be vulnerable and authentic when your identity in God is grounded?
Say it again.
Do you think it is easier to be vulnerable and authentic when your identity is grounded in God? Like, who God,
100%.
what God says about you? Then how? How is it easier?
Because I feel like maybe before I was really ashamed to talk about things like that I was going through or whatever the situation was. It was hard to talk about because I didn't know like the guilt or like the opinions of others or what people were going to think about me or talk about me. Like it mattered when I was younger, even kind of as a younger adult too. But as I came to know God, he gave me freedom in that area to speak, and he took the shame and the guilt away. And so once I started knowing who I was in God, then that's like the main thing. I feel like these in the world today, the biggest issue is identity. It goes all the way back to identity. If everyone in this world knew their identity in God, can you imagine how great of a place it would be?
Yeah.
That's probably actually heaven, actually. You probably know exactly your identity in God in heaven.
Well,
and there's no tears, there's no sorrow, there's like nothing.
That was the beginning. Like Satan made Adam and Eve question their identity straight up.
That's all he does. So every single time.
When he was tempting Jesus during the 40 days of fasting, he's like, well, if you're truly the Son of God.
Well, it's attacking your identity. Yeah.
Going after.
That's literally all. It's not even to separate you. It's to separate you, yes, from God and like the love of God, but it's a straight attack. Every single thing that Satan's going to throw at you has to do with your identity.
Yeah, because Satan lost his identity.
Yeah, because he, wanted to sing. He wanted to act like he's better than God. And God like, oh, you think you're funny? Boom. And like lightning, he was gone. But yeah, I mean, I think you guys get the gist of it. Like, we always go back in every probably episode and say, identity. People are going to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to look that up again. And be like, well, we're just preaching.
That's like the biggest things we talk
really
about. Identity, porn, and marriage.
And sex.
And sex.
Well, let's see. Yeah. Well, that's real life, though.
I know. Well, those are like some of the biggest topics.
Yeah, that's what you need to...
Some of the biggest things for people.
Go off of all the time. Yeah, I was just pondering on that. What's the hardest thing about being vulnerable?
Okay, so it's actually I would say, and it's funny because we just talked about opinions and like negative opinions about us and stuff like that, but I would say it's hard to be vulnerable when it comes to, for me, like when it comes to someone who has a high opinion of me, or is supposed to, like with us, like it's hard sometimes for me to be vulnerable with you, because like with other people I'm like, I don't care. I'm like this is like, I screw up all the time, this is my problem, this is my stuff, like I can admit it to people, and people are like, oh wow, that's awesome, thank you. But it's hard sometimes when it's
disappointed in you.
Yeah, like my thing is like, I just don't want to ever disappoint you. I just don't want to ever make you feel like, oh, that's my husband, like that is like, that hurts.
Oh, that's my husband.
Like, yeah, if I ever make you feel like, well, like I'm married to that,
Or, oh no, I say that, baby.
I know.
Not in a bad way, though.
Oh.
I know.
I was like, I know.
What? You do know? No, I don't. I literally am like, yeah, I'm married to that. Look at that boy.
But no, I think that I would say that's been this past 2 years. I mean, because we've talked about stuff and how you want me to communicate and share and be vulnerable, but like it's hard because I just don't want to ever disappoint. Like I hate missing the mark. I hate it so much, and being vulnerable in that area, it's a scary thing for me.
Well, because it's a risk. It's a risk for disappointment. It's a risk. It's actually a fear.
And it goes back to like,
it brings it back to
there's things that fearful. I've been through, like where it's like when I miss the mark, people just walk out of my life, or
I was gonna say rejection. Actually,
yeah.
If you are vulnerable, that's a risk for rejection
and that's like one of the scariest things for me, because like people in my life have been flip-floppy, and it's like, okay, well then I don't want anything to like, and what I always wanted is somebody that is gonna fight for me, is gonna fight to stay with me. And that was like one of the biggest things why I was so excited to be like in a relationship with you, because it was like you were fighting to stay with me. And
I didn't feel like I had to try that hard.
I know, but it's
pretty easy.
But it's still one of those things where it's like there's been people in my life where they're like, no, I'm done, too much, don't want to. And so it's like it's hard being vulnerable again, because it's like this person could walk out and I could be right back at school.
Well, I honestly think, I've always been that way anyways, but I do think that because I don't know, like I really am a committed type person, so if I'm going to take the risk and commit to this, then I'm gonna try my all in that. Now I'm gonna forget what I'm saying, where I was going with that, but in the same sense, like it wasn't like I think that our paths aligned on God's timing in that area because of what I've already been through.
Yeah.
So when people say like it's too much for me and stuff, and I'm like you were nothing, like what I've been through truly,
Yeah.
and like what I had to deal with, and I was like, that was like the hard stuff, and it made me appreciate you so much more. And not saying like that it's all perfect and sunshine and stuff, but it wasn't. It's hard in a different way because, you know, when you go from toxic relationship to toxic relationship, when you finally get in a healthy relationship, that's the hard part. That's actually because it's
It makes
you
you
go back
question
to the
everything.
vomit,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
you keep going back to what's familiar. So when you finally break that cycle and then go back to the healthy part, that's the hardest part because then you have the healing to do, and then you have all the rest of the stuff that you gotta figure out along the way, and then have to fight off the toxic parts that would come with you through the relationships or the things that you haven't healed from. And so you have to like constantly fight that of what the past was and not what you're currently in. So when you're like, oh man, everyone's like it's too much, and I'm like, no, but I think the people that it didn't fight for you is maybe because they're lazy, like in those areas. And it doesn't mean that you weren't like worth not fighting for, because you definitely were. And that's why I was so confused. I'm like, are girls like stupid sometimes? Because I'm like, I just don't understand. I'm like, they could have what I had if that's what they want. Like, they have no idea how it really is. I'm like, you guys have no idea. So I don't know why you giving up a guy like this, because boom, I'm busting down the door. Okay, I don't know. But seriously, I literally was like, when you would always say that, like, no one would fight for you and like get on that, I was just like so mind. I'm like, dude, everyone just wants the bad boys and toxic stuff.
Well, and there was some
there's
growing
stuff
that
you had to
I
do,
needed
yeah.
to do too. Like I was
100%.
definitely not perfect in my relationships in the past. You know, like I had my own faults. Like
Well, no.
I did not communicate well. I did not always place that person as the highest priority necessarily. But I mean, I did the best that I could at times for sure. But
Well, there's behind the scenes stuff, but
there's a ton of behind the scenes stuff. But yeah, I would say that's the hardest thing for me about being vulnerable is like I just don't want. Like the close relationships that I have, like Steven and I were talking about this yesterday. I would not recommend moving in with a friend generally, but when I needed a place to stay and he offered a place to stay, it always ends up with two friends ended up not being friends anymore. But Steven and I, our relationship grew even stronger when we moved in because I respect Steven so much and he respects me so much that it's like, hey, let's find an agreement and then let's stick to it. And like, if you need this, I can provide this and vice versa. And I respected his rules. He respected my rules and wishes. And we were vulnerable. Then it created a space to be vulnerable with each other. But for me, it was like, I don't want to lose this friendship so bad. I don't want to lose this friendship so bad that I'm going to make sure I treat him right. I'm going to make sure that I respect him. I'm going to make sure, you know. And so when it comes to relationships like that, and like the thought of like hurting that person or the thought of letting them down, it's rough. So
yeah, I feel like if you want a relationship though, this starts with you have to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
You otherwise they won't know who you really are. They won't know your authentic self because you're not being your authentic self because of image and what you want them to think about you. But it's the fact that you feel way more confident than when you truly are vulnerable and like choose to be who you are, and then people accept you and they love you and you get closer relationships and you've helped people over that. That's like my thing. I'm like, that's a true relationship. So that's why I always am like, what do you want to know?
Yeah.
Like, even if I know if this is going to be a part that like, that's why I'm so honest. And it's because I think I've been with like oh man, I'm trying not to say stuff, but a bunch of liars, but like been around lying so much that I literally cannot stand it. I'm literally just like, please, I don't even care if it hurts me. Like, I'm going to take this way better with the truth.
Yeah.
And like, if you come at me, then me finding out like myself, or not even in just like any kind of vulnerable area. Because you can't grow a relationship if you're going to keep staying and shutting down and like keeping it hidden. You have to open it up and talk about it. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's like the main thing that what we've been talking about, I guess, is just constantly being vulnerable. I think that was really hard for you.
It was very hard.
I was like, dude, what the heck? I'm like, you don't even got it bad. Like, you're like, so it was about little stuff too. I mean, you were from the beginning, but there was other things that it was like really hard for you. Even like little stuff.
Even
and I
little
was
stuff, like I'm frustrated.
I was like, what are you not like? Why are you doing that? Who cares?
Even
like,
telling you I'm pissed.
I was like, I truly feel like I'm such an easy person to approach. To a point.
Yeah.
But it's more like with you fear too much of like what I'm gonna say and think and do. And really, like, every time that you came to me that I know of, I can think of, I feel like I've done a pretty good job. Like, there goes moments that you have to process things and whatever else, but like,
yeah, now I've had to work on just saying it, even if I don't want to say it.
yeah, because you're in a marriage
I'm a stuffer. I'm a stuffer. I stuff it down.
And I have to say it out loud.
Yeah, you say it even if I'm not looking for it.
Well, yeah, but that's because if I how I am an external, how I said,
you process
if I keep like saying things out loud, then I sometimes will answer my own questions or be like,
and
actually, that sounds really stupid. Never mind. Like, that's,
and then we're all good.
Because I have so many like voices. I wouldn't say voices in my head, but like all this chatter and all this this stuff in my mind, and I can easily make it a swirl and go down to a spiral. Like, just so much going on. So if I get it out, I'm like, actually, no, that sounds really dumb. Sorry, never mind. Like, do you remember when I did that?
Yeah.
I was like, I don't remember if you remember I did that
I remember
3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I remember. I was in the bathroom. I was like, go away. And you're like, no, I have to tell you this.
Yeah, well.
I was like, ugh. I'm like, okay. Like,
you're married now.
Yeah.
And so I opened the door and I'm like, hey, real quick, can I say something to you without you getting mad? And you were like, yeah, your heart probably sunk like, oh gosh, what happened?
I did for a second. And I hate going to the bathroom with anybody, even near, like, it's just a pet peeve of mine. Like, it's my time. Like, I want to go to the bathroom in peace. And so you're talking to me, and I'm exposed, I feel like. And you want to talk about being vulnerable. I feel vulnerable right now. My pants are down, and I'm, like, in the bathroom, and I feel vulnerable, and I'm like, oh, great. Like, I'm going to get some hard news while my pants are down. It's so weird.
It was not even hard news. I just said it out loud.
It really wasn't.
Okay, I'm realizing some
Yeah.
stuff, like, obviously. But I also felt like I had to communicate that with you, too.
Yeah.
Because I don't want you coming at me being like, what's wrong? And that really has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
It's more of me, but I feel like I still had to say that. Because I'm like, I'm just going to keep going down in a spiral if I don't get this out right now. I need the word vomit. But I do have to learn how to shut my mouth sometimes. 100%.
Well, I wouldn't even say it's like shutting the mouth. It's like
there's a time for things.
There's a time, or even
well, no,
like
I don't
how.
It's not like I say stuff in public or.
No. No. I mean, you do good about that. I'm saying like maybe you need to get it off your chest, but it's the way, like, not just the way it's delivered or whatever, like how I say things, but it's like maybe just don't assume it's that way, or don't like just like when you bring it to the light, you know, like, hey, this is how I'm feeling. Can you help me work through this and explain maybe why I'm feeling this way? Is there a reason I'm feeling this way? You know, that kind of thing.
Okay, that's good. I'm gonna write that down.
Because if it's something that I'm truly doing, because like we've had multiple different situations where it's something that I'm doing that's bugging you, and then it's like, can you help me work through this? Because then it's like, oh yeah,
you have good questions though. You got like in the moment you have good questions. Me, not so much. It kind of just and you like sit there and think about it, but I can't.
And I'm the fixer. And I'm like, if there's something that I'm doing that's bothering you, I don't want to do it anymore. You know? So I'm the person that's like I want to be able to fix it. So if it was brought to the light, like, hey, can you help me figure out how we can get from point A to point B without there being this this garbage right here. I'd be like, okay, yeah, let's figure it out.
I'm
what
like
do I
that
gotta
though
do?
too. I'm a root person. I go all
Yeah.
the way back. Like, what's the root issue here? This is not like this is how I'm feeling and this is what's going on. But let's go back because that's not really what is going on. There's actually more to it. So it's kind of funny because I'm actually like a therapist at work and I'm a therapist in my personal life. I get texts while I'm at work all times throughout the day, being like, I need your help. And someone actually just told me, one of my friends just texted me yesterday. She hasn't reached out in a while and she ended up being like, I'm like, girl, you need to go to therapy. And I was dead serious, like, and not meaning like in a bad way, but I'm just saying there's some root issues that there's more going on right now. And until you start being vulnerable and like talking, I mean, she definitely has for me, that's for sure. I don't know if she wants to tell other people that, but she has, but it, like going all the way back to things. I'm like, there's a root issue going on here that you need to figure out because you're going to keep feeling this way until you figure it out. Like, there's something else more going on. It's not like you just feel this guilt and this shame for this situation. There's so much more to it. Like, this not. So I like to dissect things and like, okay, let's take a step back. Okay, we're here. Okay, let's take a step back. That's actually like a therapist. But that's what she was like. She's like, girl, you are my therapy. She's like, I actually think you are my therapist. And I was like, yeah, I know. I keep feeling that way. And maybe I should just go get my license and do my own classes because that's something I like to do, though. I like to find the root problem and go back and try to figure it out and say, okay, now let's deal with this. Let's heal it, because that's what I had to do when I was going through my stuff, is like going to therapy and finding out the root issues. I'm like, oh, okay, because now that makes more sense. Now it makes all the way sense all the way back from my childhood. There was something that kept going on throughout my life because I was never dealing with it because it was something from my childhood. Like, that's insane to me. Like, that's so crazy. And I'm like, wow, it's not that easy to fix, and it takes time and heal and stuff, but I don't know. I just think it was a fun little time. So now I'm going to be charging $50 an hour. I'm like, nope, send me one text. That's $50.
Starts your time. So how has being vulnerable been a positive impact in your life?
A positive impact. Well, I mean, I don't know. I feel like it's everything. I can't say my whole life's a positive impact, not at all, but like I've been through so much garbage and crap that I feel like I haven't held back a lot, and I think it's made a huge positive impact on my life. I don't know how to say that. Like, how has it? I don't know. I might be thinking about writing a book about things that's happened in my life to help people. It's made like this, it showed me, like, it doesn't define me, like what happened to me and like how I reacted to it or whatever, but it's also made me who I am and how I react to things now, and it's helped me grow. So if I feel like I can help someone, I'm going to do that. But I don't really know how to answer that question.
Well,
when you say like, how has it made a big,
I'll give an example then.
A positive impact in your life?
I've had more real relationships than I ever have in my entire life.
Oh yeah.
Like
it helps you relate and connect to people.
Yeah, like I've had a lot of fake friendships, or a lot of fake, or even not fake. I've had a lot of acquaintances where I thought we were friends, and it could have been just my fault, like me thinking that we were on a deeper friendship or connection than we actually were.
But it's just more like hanging out. It's not like deep.
It's not deep. Yeah, I have
questions.
I have more contacts in my phone that I could actually call and be like, hey, I need you right now. And than I ever have in my entire life. Like, for the longest time, I felt so alone because I was like, I don't trust any of these people. Mm-hmm. And now I actually have more friends than I ever have, true friends.
Yeah.
That I can count on.
Because you finally opened up and you've been real and raw with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that has made my life amazing now. And it just goes back to, how did Jesus had tons of relationships. And Jesus was like one of the realest dudes ever. Like, he like.
Well, we're made in his image. That's where we got it from.
I know, and we're supposed to have a relationship, but I would say it's been the most authentic I've ever had.
How about, let's go on one. How about you give me an example that you've seen my vulnerability or being authentic in someone's life, or what's an impact? You tell me that answer.
Oh, I tell you how I've seen it be a positive impact on your life?
Yeah.
Well, everybody freaking loves you. They tell me about you all the time. They're like, oh, your wife's so nice, or oh, your wife this.
What? I don't think so. Oh, maybe I don't give myself enough credit.
I love
No.
your wife.
Oh, no, well, I don't think that, because there's a lot of people that won't like you and a lot of people that do.
Yeah, there is, but I mean, all the people that
positive
have like
impact. I just
shared
think,
that.
I think it honestly is such a compliment. Like, one of the biggest compliments to me is when people do say something like, thank you so much for helping me, and like being real and authentic. Like, you were vulnerable in your story, and it helped me. So, like, thank you in that. That's why I personally have loved to hear, and that's
I mean,
why I'm
even
such
in the young adult group, I would say there's so many young adults that have come recently that because we've been open and honest, like we've created relationships like super easy.
I love connecting to people though, and I
Yeah.
love relating to people, because how can you build a friendship when, I mean, there's things that you aren't going to relate on everything and connect, and you can have friends and personalities like that too, like without that stuff. But truly, like, opening up and being vulnerable is what is going to make you connect to people and relate to them. What were you saying? I kind of cut you off.
Oh,
Think about it.
I was just saying, like, just even like, there's a young couple that we had over for dinner not too long ago, and we've been super open with them, and it just created a friendship, like a bond that was strong in such a short amount of time.
Took our advice.
Oh yeah.
And started doing that.
Yeah.
And like as a couple, and we were like, what the heck? Like, wow, we're so proud of you guys. Like, that's awesome.
And
like,
it's
so
literally
pumped.
created such a bond, such a strong bond in a short amount of time by being vulnerable, that it's like it's like a little brother, a little sister. Like it is like, I remember telling you, like, after they had finished eating dinner and we played Rock Band and stuff, they left, and I was like, I freaking love them. I love them so much. Like, this is so cool. Like, and all we did was have dinner and hang out and talk, and I was just like cloud nine.
I was just like cloud9. I know you did. But then you like come off a high.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, there's gonna be a crash.
Yeah. It's true.
So all the advice that we're just gonna tell people is be real and authentic. Like, stop being fake. For real. No more fake social media. Let's all be friends. What? It's easier to love people when you see someone's, okay, I know I'm cutting on time, but when you see someone's story and when they're true, it makes sense. So like when you think something about someone or whatever, what you've seen, and then you really realize what truly is going on, like being like what's happening, it's way easier to open up, to have compassion and love people, have a relationship.
It's perfect that we did this video right after the opinions one, because opinions can be destroyed by being vulnerable and showing who you truly are.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Boom.
Boom.
That's a wrap.
Now that means if you listen to this one first, now you have to go back and listen to the opinions one. I mean,
just hold on though, because it was a little rough. He was slow going at first.
Slow going at first.
I felt like it. Now I'm in my stride. I'm in my stride now. I feel like we could do this for another 2 hours.
Sean's like, nope, ready to go home.
Yeah.
He's like,
I'm gonna go home.
Cut time.
Yeah.
Out. All right.
Okay, let's pray.
Let us pray.
Let's pray. Jesus, we just thank you so much for creating relationships, and as hard as it may be sometimes, Lord, I just thank you that you made us the way you did. You're so smart and know what you're doing, and I love it. I love what you're doing. Anyways, Lord, I just ask that you just help us to be vulnerable to people around us. Help us to be vulnerable and authentic, just like Jesus was in his time on earth. And we just ask that you help us create new relationships by being vulnerable and strengthening those relationships by being authentic. In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Thank you so much for joining us today. If you're interested in checking out more of our podcasts as they come available, please download our app in your device's app store or check us out on your podcast platform at Garden Valley Church. We look forward to seeing you next time.